easily.
Spain overtakes Italy as the top destination for migrants from North Africa. As Congo battles the spread of the deadly Ebola virus, neighboring Uganda takes measures to prevent the disease from crossing the borders. And craft gins and new distilleries take over South Africa's bar scene. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. As the Democratic Republic of Congo battles the spread of the deadly Ebola virus, just across the border in Uganda, survivors of a 2007 outbreak are reminded of the near-death experience they suffered through. The Bundi-Bugyo district at the border with Uganda and the DRC faced the brunt of the hemorrhagic disease as both health workers and residents lost their lives. Halima Thumani reports from Bundi-Bugyo in Uganda.
I don't know how long you're going to be.
Health worker Samuel Kule in 2007 was attending to patients with mysterious fevers, along with his brother who was also a health worker.
And within 2 days, my brother also was affected. So I attended to my brother also. And after 2 days, he was referred to Bundi-Bugyo Hospital and he died in Bundi-Bugyo Hospital.
Kule also became infected, and it was his blood test that confirmed Uganda was facing an outbreak of Ebola. Chachimwa Jacobet lost 2 brothers and a niece to the virus and became infected herself. She recalls the stigma and rejection of being linked to Ebola.
Even those we shared meals with, those who spent their days with us, suddenly never wanted to be around us. When I was admitted to the hospital, the landlord evicted my children out of fear that they would infect others with the disease.
Before the 2007 Ebola outbreak was contained, 149 people were infected and 37 died, 5 of them health workers. With Ebola spreading once again just over the border in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Uganda is screening border crosses carefully. Uganda's Ministry of Health sent a trial vaccine for frontline workers like Francis Muhindo, who fought the 2007 outbreak.
The threat is that anytime anybody can contract it from Congo, cross up to here, and maybe we get in contact with such a person and have and contract the disease. So, if I'm immunized, I think I will be safe.
The Ministry of Health says 20,000 people cross the border each week, putting Uganda at high risk of another Ebola outbreak. Halima Afmani for VOA News, Bundi-Bugyo.
Cameroonian parents of about 80 schoolboys are breathing easier Tuesday after kidnappers freed the last of the students on Monday, according to a church minister and a regional official. The boys were abducted last week in a raid on a school in West Cameroon. Armed men seized the children, their principal and other adults in Bamenda, a center of the country's troubled English-speaking region, where separatists are fighting to form a breakaway republic called Ambazonia. Most were freed last week, but 2 boys, the principal and a dormitory warden, remained hostage until Monday. The military and Samuel Fonke, the minister of the Presbyterian Church who negotiated the release, blamed the abduction on Anglophone separatists. But a spokesman for the separatists denies the allegations and says that the Cameroonian army carried out the kidnapping. Well, good news for Eritrea. The United Nations Security Council is set to vote on Wednesday to immediately lift a nearly decade-old arms embargo and targeted sanctions on Eritrea. Diplomats say the country's rapprochement with Ethiopia and thawing of relations with Djibouti are the primary reasons. Speaking on condition of anonymity, diplomats revealed the 15-member council completed negotiations on Monday and agreed on a British-drafted resolution to remove the sanctions which were imposed in 2009 after UN experts accused Eritrea of supporting armed groups in Somalia. Eritrea has denied the accusations. A resolution needs 9 votes in favor, no vetoes by the United States, China, Russia, Britain or France. Diplomats say Wednesday's vote is likely to be unanimous. Eritrea and Djibouti agreed in September to work on reconciling. It came after Ethiopia and Eritrea in July declared an end to their state of war and agreed to open embassies, develop ports and resume flights between the two countries after decades of hostilities. Well, Spain has overtaken Italy as the top destination for migrants traveling from North Africa. Madrid has taken a softer line on migration than many other European countries, urging the European Union to increase its search and rescue capabilities at sea. Local authorities in the southern region of Andalusia say they need more help, warning that migrants are sleeping on the floors of police stations and churches. And Ridgewell has more from Seville.
Just 14 kilometers separate Africa and Europe at the narrowest point, the Strait of Gibraltar. Spain's shores have tempted more than 50,000 migrants to risk their lives on the crossing this year. More than 550 have drowned. Seville, the capital of Spain's southern Andalusia region, is a first stop for many newly arrived migrants.
Migration should be welcomed. In Europe, we will need from now to 2050 more than 50 million people to be able to support our public social system. We are the ones who need them, but it has to be regulated, and this has to be done by Europe.
Contrast that view with Italy, facing similar demographic challenges where the populist government has clamped down on accepting migrant boats. There is little sign of a right-wing backlash in Spain, but could such political forces find fertile ground?
I do not believe it could be possible. The problem has to be resolved jointly. It is a deep problem that the EU has no jurisdiction in migration matters. The most important legal competence in these matters is at the national level.
The European Union in July gave Spain $29 million in emergency funding to bolster reception facilities for migrants. Integrating the new arrivals is a different matter. At this Spanish language class, funded with help from the state, students describe why they have come to Europe. Mamadou Kante is eager to show off the Spanish he has learned.
I want to work in Spain to support my mother back in my country. And I have a girlfriend, and we have a baby boy there. So now I have to work for them.
My mother died a long time ago, and I have never known who my father is. So all I had is my faith. I did not have any other support.
Many of these students are children who traveled alone, now under government care. But activists say the authorities are overwhelmed and many other young migrants simply disappear.
It is very worrying because if these kids are not taken in by the authorities, then they are in the hands of the mafia, and we do not know what their future would be.
The Spanish government is backing EU calls for migrant processing centres in Africa and investment in African economies to tackle the poverty that is driving migrants to its shores. That remains a long-term goal. For now, Spain must cope economically and politically with becoming the new favoured destination for migrants seeking a better life. Henry Ridgewell, VOA News, Seville.
We're turning now to those deadly wildfires raging in the western U.S. state of California. Massive swathes of acreage continues to burn out of control in the northern and southern parts of the state. Authorities are searching for more than 200 people that are unaccounted for, and the death toll now stands at 42. As viewers Michael Sullivan reports, more than 220,000 people have been displaced in the blazes that have reduced thousands of homes and businesses to ashes and their owners to tears.
The so-called Woolsey Fire continues to rage in Malibu and other coastal communities near Los Angeles. Among the 370 structures destroyed there have been the homes of celebrities, including the actress and singer Miley Cyrus. North of Sacramento, most of Paradise, a town of 27,000, was burned to the ground, and authorities continued the grim task of searching for bodies. Monday, fire officials near Los Angeles said new outbreaks are still occurring.
Within the last hour, we had 2 brand new starts, and obviously it just hits home on the fact that we are still in significant fire weather, and the existing fire is not our only concern.
Displaced residents are trying to come to terms with the destruction.
There's whole neighborhoods that are just gone. Streets, rows and rows and rows. My daughter's house and her mother-in-law and husband's house, every house on the street is just gone.
As firefighters search the smoldering wreckage, they report progress in some places, but say the 2 major fires in the state are far from containment, and more winds and dry conditions are forecast. Mike O'Sullivan, VOA News, Los Angeles.
Former U.S. First Lady Michelle Obama kicked off a book tour on Tuesday, promoting a memoir entitled Becoming. On Monday, Obama shared some excerpts from the book while meeting a small group of students at Chicago's Whitney Young Magnet High School, her alma mater. Obama writes in her book that her time at the high school marked the first time she was exposed to children from privileged and connected families. The book also reveals a belief that U.S. President Donald Trump repeatedly casting doubt on her husband's citizenship put her family at risk. Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. And also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at @VinceMcCory. Still ahead on Africa 54, Malawi is considering changes to its abortion laws. But first, a look at Tuesday's headlines.
Libyan rival leaders Fayez Sarraj and General Khalifa Haftar met for the first time in more than 5 months at a conference in Italy. The conference focused on reuniting the country's leaders after the UN shelved plans to hold an election next month.
We put 2 padlocks on these 2 rooms.
In Uganda, 11 boys were killed and 20 more injured after a fire ripped through their dormitories at St. Bernard Maya Secondary School in Rakai, police said on Monday. In Gabon, President Ali Bongo admitted for the first time he's in critical condition after being hospitalized for 3 weeks in Saudi Arabia, though his health is said to be improving. DRC's head of the country's largest opposition party said he was abandoning a day-old agreement to field a joint opposition candidate in next month's presidential elections.
Well, the U.S. Democratic Party picked up another Senate seat late Monday following a vote count in Arizona that dragged on for almost a week after voters went to the polls on November the 6th. Kirsten Sinema won the open Senate seat, defeating Republican candidate Martha McSally by nearly 2% of the vote. She sent out a congratulations to Sinema by Twitter. Sinema was declared the winner late Monday, 6 days after the election.
What has become far too common in our country, name-calling, petty personal attacks, and doing and saying whatever it takes just to get elected. It's dangerous, and it lessens who we are as a country. But Arizona proved that there is a better way forward.
Well, Sinema will become Arizona's first female U.S. senator when she takes the seat now held by retiring Republican Senator Jeff Flake. The Arizona Senate race was one of 2 Senate races whose results were unknown after last Tuesday's midterm elections. Republicans will still keep control of the Senate. However, Democrats seized control of the House of Representatives from Republicans and are vowing to launch investigations of President Trump and his administration's policies. Much of the attention is now centered on Florida, where a recount is underway in the Senate and governor's race. President Donald Trump has complained the 2 Florida recounts are fraudulent and ought to be called off. A recount is also underway in the governorship in the southern state of Georgia. Election officials are also still counting votes in several close elections for seats in the House of Representatives. Well, Mo Saif el-Din was born in Sudan. Seeking a better future for their children, his parents moved him and his 5 older siblings to U.S. state of Virginia. Mo attended Virginia public schools and later proceeded to college, becoming the first in his family to pursue a graduate degree. Recently, Mo became the first Muslim and Sudanese American elected to the Alexandria City Council. Mo Saif el-Din joins me now to tell us more about his life's journey. Welcome to Africa 54.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And congratulations for winning the seat.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
And for full disclosure, you come from my neighborhood.
I do, actually. I just had to know that you're a constituent now. Welcome.
All right. Now, tell us first, what made you want to run for this? Sometimes children of immigrants or immigrants get a bit intimidated.
Right, there is that intimidation, but I wanted to be part of the conversation. I didn't want to be serving the table. I wanted to be sitting on the table so that people from our community have a voice as well. So that was one of the reasons I decided to run and make some changes to my community.
Yeah. And given your background, yes. You're probably very young when you left Sudan. How does this make you feel, being a person who literally was born in Sudan and now in the United States representing a U.S. constituency in the city?
Absolutely. I was born and raised in Sudan. I came to the U.S. at the age of around 11 or 12. When I came here, I actually didn't speak English. But really, this says a lot about democracy in the U.S. and the possibility of hope. I occupy now a seat that was once held by the first president of the United States, George Washington. I'm an African immigrant and a Muslim. So that says a lot, and the voters trusted my message, not my face. So it's great to represent people of all.
So you were not just elected by entirely Muslim residents of Alexandria?
Absolutely not. Yeah. The city is about 63% Caucasian and the rest immigrants. So I had to get the majority of the votes from those people, and they looked at me and what I represent, my ideas and my credential, and they believed in that, and I intend to deliver to everyone in Alexandria.
Yes. Now, when people think about elective positions, we've been focusing on the bigger ones like Ilhan Omar from Minnesota. Yeah. How critical is a position like yours, and what does it mean to African immigrants and Muslims in this region?
Absolutely. First, congrats to Ilhan. She did a great job. But really, what I tell people from Africa or immigrants in general, local elections may have more of an impact on your daily life than the general election, and participation, therefore, is very important. The basic decisions that impact you, from school, health, to basic things like that, it starts with your local elected officials. And if you don't have a seat at the table, you don't have a representation, you don't speak up because you're too busy chasing a living, these decisions will impact you negatively. So I'm glad to be representing them and have a voice from our community.
Yeah. Okay, and many times in this country, people have been sometimes scared of even sometimes identifying themselves as Muslims.
Right.
Do you find that an issue really in Alexandria or in most of the places where you ended up having to converse or even try to get people to get attention?
No, thankfully it's not a big issue in Alexandria. It's a very progressive city that's open to everyone and invite everyone. So check us out and visit Alexandria. But really, it's welcoming. We had some issues, but nothing serious. And I urge people, to be who they are, live their life. And this is the country for it. This is where you can be who you are. The Constitution protects you. The law protects you. And an elected official, also as an attorney, I intend to enforce that law and make sure that everyone is protected under the law without being discriminated against for their looks, their religion, or beliefs.
Very quickly, what is your one concern? Not only about Alexandria, but about this country today.
Yeah. Well, about the country, there are many concerns, but we want to make sure that the institutions that make this country tick are protected. And the only way to do that is by everyone participating. You can't sit outside. You can't sit this one out. You can't sit on the sideline. So make sure that your voices are heard, get involved, and this way we'll be able to move forward and make sure that everyone is protected under the law. Within Alexandria, I'm working on affordable housing and make sure that everyone has a good standard of living. So we have some challenges, but we're looking forward to tackling them, and I think we have the right mentality to do it.
Great. Once again, congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks. It's a pleasure. Well, Mo Saif el-Din is the first Muslim and Sudanese American elected to Alexandria City Council. Well, the Malawian government is considering a proposal to liberalize the country's abortion laws. Abortion is currently allowed only when a woman's life is in danger, so many pregnant women turn to risky and safe procedures to end unwanted pregnancies. However, the draft law faces stiff opposition from religious leaders who say abortion is a sin. Lamek Messina has the story from Blantyre.
Margaret Kawala, a village head in central Malawi, is one of thousands of Malawian women living with complications because of unsafe abortion. A decade ago, Kawala took an abortion-inducing concoction from a traditional healer after she became pregnant while she was breastfeeding a 2-month-old baby.
I am a poor person, and also the child was too young, so having another child would be a problem. But if I were a well-to-do person, I would have hired a maid to help me care for the babies.
The concoction did its job, but caused lasting damage.
Soon after taking the drug, I started feeling pain in my stomach on my way home. And at home, I started losing a lot of blood from my cervix. I was taken to the hospital.
She says the medics told her the concoction had ruptured her uterus.
So they removed my uterus because it was damaged. Now I can't get pregnant because I don't have a uterus.
She says the decision also cost her a marriage.
My husband told me that he wanted to marry another woman who can give him children. After some time, he left me for good, and he now stays with his new wife.
Research by Gatmacher Institute and the University of Malawi College of Medicine says 18% of maternal deaths in Malawi are caused by unsafe abortions, one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the world. Obstetricians at Malawi's Queen Elizabeth Central Hospital say they receive between 20 and 30 patients with post-abortion complications a day, largely because of injuries to the uterus from sharp objects women use to end pregnancies.
As a result of the wound, they get infection, and this can be so serious if they are not treated on time and lead to death.
The country's penal code permits abortion only for pregnant women whose lives are in danger. But the proponents of the drafted abortion bill have added 4 more grounds under which women will have an abortion.
So these are the grounds where the woman has been raped, has been defiled, or incest, in cases of incest, and these situations don't really need a proof by the court.
However, the drafted bill is facing opposition from some traditional and religious leaders.
As a matter of fact, the Bible is very, very clear about it. It says, thou shalt not kill. In Exodus chapter 20, verse number 13, it says, you shall not kill. And we believe life begins at conception. Therefore, we have a duty to maintain our standard. We have a duty to preserve life.
There is no timetable when the draft law will go to lawmakers for debate and a possible vote. For now, abortion remains mostly outlawed in Malawi, and women like Kawala have to deal with the consequences. Lamek Messina for VOA News, Blantyre.
A recent proliferation of craft gins and new distillers is taking over South Africa's bar scene. But this is not your average gin. Distillers say South African gin is infused with unique local flavors like fynbos, rooibos, marula, skelettium, and other distinctive South African botanicals that they feel will take the world's taste buds by storm. Viewers, Anita Powell reports from Johannesburg.
Gin is in South Africa. In the past few years, artisanal gin has exploded on the scene of a nation better known for its wines. At this Johannesburg wine shop, sales manager Tabang Mamkeli says they stock several dozen South African gins, but can't keep them on the shelves.
We play around with more, botanicals and just trying to do something different. Like I said, we're not governed by rules.
Craft gins are reinventing the colonial-era image of a spirit once used to liven up anti-malarial tonic water. This popular Johannesburg gin joint is living proof. Gin is cool. Workshop 55 offers numerous international and local gins, expertly mixed. Owner Julie Solero says of all the drinks in all the world, she's thrilled to see gin taking off in South Africa.
I think it's been big in the UK now for, 10 years, quite a number of years, and only really big in South Africa, I would say, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Dozens of craft distillers now crowd the market, offering a taste of South Africa with unique, local botanical flavors. But this is not your grandmother's gin. Nick Taliakis, sales manager for 2-year-old distiller Ginologist, says he thinks South African gins can go global.
The flavor is immense, it pops, it explodes in your mouth, and it really feels you wishing to both have more and to go out and try so many other gins.
Distiller Curtis van Biljon infuses his brew with rooibos, an earthy, tannic leaf commonly drunk as tea. He says it blends well with gin's citrusy, herby base flavor, the juniper berry.
The reason gin is first is because the distillers like myself getting on making craft products, gin has the shortest maturation period, and we have the most flora available to us in South Africa for testing and being able to try new products and be creative with.
At the wine shop, Mum Kelly says he expects South African gin to take off internationally.
This is us bringing what we do best to them.
It's too delicious, he says, to keep in South Africa. Anita Powell, VOA News, Johannesburg.
That is a really delicious drink. Oh my gosh, that's really good.
Well, comic enthusiasts are remembering Stan Lee, the mastermind behind Marvel Comics' universe of superheroes. Lee died Monday at age 95. He was responsible for iconic characters including Black Panther, Spider-Man, X-Men, Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, and the Fantastic Four. Several movies were based on Lee's characters, raking in millions at the box office. Lee also published several books, including The Superhero Women in 1977 and How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way the following year. Well, the Voice of America is also saddened to report the passing on Monday of Dr. Suleiman S. Nyang. Nyang was a regular contributor to many of our television and radio programs over the years, appearing many times on Straight Talk Africa, In Focus, and Africa 54. He was a superb analyst, offering insight into some of our most complex and high-profile stories. Professor Nyang was a former chairman of the African Studies Department at Howard University here in Washington, D.C., and he served as Deputy Ambassador and Head of Chancery of the Gambian Embassy in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Nyang also authored many books, writing extensively on Islamic, African, and Middle Eastern affairs. He suffered a stroke last year and had been ailing since then. He was 74 years old. And that's our show for today. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. A rat is a small animal that can be bothersome inside homes and also spread diseases.
Pack rat.
Is this an actual type of rat? Let's listen.
Have you seen Ashley's desk lately?
Yes, I have. She is such a pack rat.
I know. There is